Hello and welcome back to another episode of Super Mario 127. This incredible game. I just love it, dude. It's got so much versatility, and this versatility will be found out in this episode, because in this episode I'm gonna show off the editor, and to do that we'll select the level, the illusion base, since it has a lot of things you might be interested about, like the invisible ground. As you can see, there is a grid like in Super Mario Maker 2, but this grid isn't necessary for all parts. There are two types of objects. For one, there's the normal blocks. And these blocks are restricted to those grids only. As you can see, I can't move them like halfway here. I have to place them either here or either there. Anyway, there's also a second object type, the normal object, and this one has a much brighter scheme. As you can see, you don't have to obey the grid, that's the thing. And even this grid that I'm able to move around with the object is still not the limit, as I can set the limit manually. But anyway, before we get into the actual things you can do with this editor, I want to show off how this level actually works. At the start, we have something that isn't really efficient, and it's this big invisible platform. Basically, what you can do is, if you go to building and you select this platform, then you have a semi-solid platform. They show it to you real quick. As you can see, we can stand on it and we can go through it from underneath. There are a couple of these semi-solid objects, but I decided to go with this one. And the way that it isn't efficient is I went into the object settings. As you can see, we have a ton of settings to work with, and this is the position layout I mentioned earlier. But anyway, we can set, the more efficient way would be to set the parts, such as 20 parts for example, which makes it a pretty large platform. But what I did, for whatever reason, I don't know, I was kinda dumb at that time, is I scaled them, and using the scale, I set this one to, I think, 10 or something, and this just makes the platform really wide. Obviously, this is another way to do this, and this is what I did here, but it's not optimal at all. So for anyone who wants to try this concept, use the parts option, it's way better. But anyway, I set this one to invisible, and this is basically how it looks in the editor. And even though you can't see it in the editor, it's still solid ground. As you can see, I can stand on it, and it works perfectly fine. And that's what I did for these first sections. I just basically plastered them with these platforms, with these invisible platforms. Then we have the invisible flood box, which I showed off too. Something more interesting would be how I got these things to work, but we'll discuss that in a second. First, I want to go over the rest of the level, and here I use different platforms, but once again use the inefficient way. Now I'm not quite sure why I did this at all, but it works, I guess, because you don't even see those to begin with, so they work. And here I did basically the same thing, but I used boo blocks instead. Boo blocks do the exact same thing. The only difference is that they have to obey to the grid, as you would expect. And they are also great since they're basically a normal ground block, but invisible, so you can use them for wall jump sections too. You could use semi-solid platforms too and like rotate them, but this is a way better solution to deal with these. And as you can see, one of the boot blocks is replaced by a bullet blaster. And this bullet blaster is the one that actually shoots. So I mentioned in the last video that there's basically no physics in this game. So the only physical object in this game is Mario and basically the playable character. So if we would put this bullet blaster in just far outpost, you know, right here for example, with no ground underneath it, in Super Mario Maker it would just drop into the abyss. But in this game it just stays there because there's no physics, which is really cool. And for this case, really unnecessary. It is unnecessary, but it's still kind of cool to see that. And yeah, then when we go up top, something that is really interesting are those things. What I did was I chose these metal things and set these things to be on the normal rotation degree, but these ones are rotated 180. Now the hitbox stays exactly the same no matter how they are rotated, but they're also intangible, they're not enabled, which means Mario can fall right through them. And then I place this semi-solid down here to prevent Mario from falling through. And then we have the shine sprite, which I set to be the title, all red coins collect it. There we go. And I also added a description to it, collect all red coins to get this shine. You know, just a simple text to see this. You can also set it to show up in the menu at the beginning of the course. However, for this to work, you need more than one shine. Otherwise, it's not going to show up. And then we have activated. So if this actually works, red coins activate means that the red coins, that this shine only spawns if the red coins are actually collected. And the second option is shine shards activate. So if all shine shards are collected, it gets activated, and not before. I don't actually know if it's possible to combine both. Probably, but I haven't really tinkered around with that. Do kick out, that's what I set to false, so it basically means that it doesn't kick me out of the stage. And we can also set the color, so if we want a red shine sprite, there you go, you have a red shine sprite now. That's basically all you can set there. We can also place a sword position, which is really good for the menu. So if you want this shine to be between two different shines, you can use the sword position method. And the other ones are basically all the settings that appear for normal objects: enabled, visible, rotation degrees, scale, and the position. Yeah, and that's basically it. Now we take a look at the doors real quick. Now the doors basically function as normal objects, but with tags. So for example, this door has tag 1. So it's door 1. Then we have, if we close this menu and go up top, you can see that we have a door that has the tag name 2. So basically, this door is set, this door tag 1 is set to be placed to teleport to tag 2. So it basically teleports to this tag here. And if you were able to use this door again by placing these or whatever, then you would be sent back to door 1, since I set this in the editor. That's really cool because this does not only work with numbers but with any text strings, allowing you to effectively use basically infinite of these doors, which is really cool. And now finally, for this level, let's take a look at how I made these blocks not solid. Well, I basically tinkered with the layer system of the game. Up top, we have a section that is called layer, and we have different layers to tinker around with. However, these layers will only affect the normal blocks and not the objects. So what we can do, for example, is normal ground layer. This basically means that the block is tangible for Mario. Then we have the foreground block, which seems to be on the same layer but completely intangible. And then we have the background 0 layer and the background 1 layer. They're basically the same. It's really cool that we have 2 of these layers, since it allows us to draw something on top of an already existing background layer without using the foreground option. As you can see, this is the ground block. It basically has full collision on each of the sides. Then we have the foreground block right to its next, and this one has 0 collision. And as you can see, these background blocks don't interact with Mario at all. And that's basically the trick that I used to create this this here red section. So basically what I did was something that is really cool that you can do. Basically what I did was I placed ground blocks at first. So for example, I placed them like this, but leaving a gap in between. So these things are actually solid, but this thing is not. And then I went to the foreground layer where nothing is solid and went through all over them, including these spots where they're actually intangible. So if we real quickly spawn Mario here, as you can see, Mario is able to walk on them and is able to fall through the other blocks. However, it seems like it's bounded together, which means that Mario basically can't guess that and he still falls through. That's basically what I did for this section. In this section I was nice enough to give the player a hint and mark this red. But on this setting I was just tinkering with it and used the same color of blocks. And as you can see, they look perfectly solid, but they aren't at all. And this is basically what I used to create this effect. As you can see, if I real quickly shape off the foreground blocks, this is how it looks in the ground position. And this is how this looks in ground position. As you can see, all of these blocks are see-through. And yeah, that's basically my illusion base level. But I want to real quickly show my Bianco Hills level, since I want to show you how the wooden platforms usually look when they are actually working and they're actually rotated. As you saw in the last episode, they don't work for some reason. They work perfectly fine in the edit mode. As you can see, they're perfectly fine here, but as soon as you boot up the game and go to the spot, they're just flat again. For some stupid reason. I'm not quite sure why. I'm just hoping they will fix this eventually. Because it would be really cool for decoration purposes. And as you can see here, I used... you can't really see it, but I used these gray platforms as the wall jumping section. And used this to enclose Mario in this wall, forcing him to wall jump. As you can see, now I'm wall jumping off of these walls that are basically invisible, but I made it so that but I placed them in such a way that it looks like Mario is sliding on the walls where he was able to pass through before. And yeah, that's basically all there is. These flowers are just intangible, as you would expect. And then there aren't actually any more sub areas in this game, but it's actually understandable because placing more sub areas would mean that the code had to be larger, and since it's just a giant text mesh, it makes sense why the developers did it like this. But since you can actually change how large this level is, as you can see, I can adjust it here. It's not that big of a deal. And yeah, we can now see I put an arrow there, and it's all making perfect sense. Here I just placed some invisible platforms once again, and here I'm using the blue platforms again to do this. And yeah, now we go up top to the final section. And this is how the windmill is supposed to look like. Still, it's pretty primitive, obviously. But at least that would look kind of alright, I guess. But like, seeing as how the game rotates them when you load it up, it's really sad because this just looks so cool in the editor, but in the play mode, nah, doesn't work. And this is the launcher I placed there, which spawns these balls. Yeah, then we have the slope, which just goes up top here, and I did the same thing here because I needed to place these blocks in a way that it wouldn't block off the blaster, because those actually, you have to set them up in a very specific way so that they don't collide with an object or anything, because otherwise they won't spawn the balls. So that took a little bit of tinkering to find out, but we managed to do it. And then the final windmill looks like this, and I also placed this invisible platform here and this blue platform. And yeah, that's basically it for this level. But I won't show off everything, but I really quickly want to go through all of the objects that we have available before we end this episode. As you can see, we have Mario and Luigi and some coins. We have the shine sprites and shine shards, obviously. We have the flood nozzles and so on. We have some more blocks here. These blocks can be actually interacted with when we have a power-up. So these metal blocks can be broken with the metal gear, which is the metal power-up. We have the rainbow blocks that can be smashed by this rainbow star. And we have these crates that work with the ghost pepper, which is the vanish cap. Then we have the cannons, these wooden platforms, the doors, the platforms, and the snow block, as well as the cork box. Now for enemies, we don't really have any of them. We only have a couple. I'm sure they will add more in the future, but right now we only have the green demons, these guys, and so on. So it's not really that much for enemy territory. Then we have some grass things here and there. We only have one slope type in this game, which, you know, it limits our creation powers a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. And yeah, some more things, some wooden platforms. Then we have the snow asset, which is also really cool. Then we have the cave, and this has this really cool textured block, which I haven't really tinkered with, but it is an amazing cool block. And when I actually build a cave stage, I'll probably use these blocks to decorate them. Then once we have them, we can move on to the building. This is the one that has by far the most blocks, and it's easy to see why. We got these blue blocks, the green blocks, we got the red blocks and yellow blocks, and these all have their two slopes that you can add as well. And we have these blocks from Toy Time Galaxy, I believe, which also come in the colors red, yellow, green, and blue. Then we have the mirrors. We have the normal platforms. These normal two platforms. We have these blocks. We have these stone ancient things. And another really cool stone block. And now we come to the castle. There isn't really much going on here, just a couple of things. This is a carpet, no lava. Like I said, lava will be added in the next update. And yeah, then we have some miscellaneous stuff like this tile. I have no idea why this exists, but it does, so it's cool that Mario is just able to walk on, well, blackness? Like, I've honestly no idea what this is supposed to be. A dead pixel? I have no idea, but it's cool that it's in the game. Because for decoration purposes, it's always nice to have these. Then we have the boo blocks. We have these blocks from Bowser 1. If I remember correctly, we have the slopes. We have the arrows. We have the mushroom platforms. And we have some more decorations, including the clouds. And that's basically it for the editor. There's only one thing I want to showcase, and that is the level settings. And in this settings, we can basically set the name, the length, which we already discussed, and we can set the backgrounds. So we can place it like this, sunrise, and just nothing. And we can place the foreground, so it's still in the background but be front of the actual background. So you can change it to nothing, or to this hills kind of section, to these trees, to these underground cave things, to the Bowser stages, then these things, these mountains, another one of these mountains, and basically nothing too. So that's pretty cool that we can do this, but something that's even cooler is that we are able to place custom music. Now, what the Mario 127 Discord community is doing is basically they're uploading the song to a private Discord first, then they're placing the URL here, and then you can listen to the OGG file in your level, and that's really, really cool. And you're also able to set up a loop like I did here. Like I said in the last episode, I'm not really good at using these loops, but I'll get into it eventually. But on top of that, there's also a lot of presets that you can access, including some really, really cool bits, some really cool remakes. But we'll actually save them for another video. And that's basically it for today. We showed off a lot of things you can do in the editor. There's still more things to discover, but we won't actually do that next episode. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at some of the my favorite glitches in this game. And there are a couple of them that the community already gathered in this demo. They probably won't stand for long, but we're going to try to break this game apart, which could be a really, really hard task. If you want to not lose any future episodes, then I would really love it if you would hit that little subscribe button, please, as I will make much more content of this game, because I really think it does deserve its own YouTube channel, or at least someone who actually plays through a lot of it. So if you want to see more of this, then consider subscribing. I have a link to a couple of my prototype levels in the description below if you want to check them out. And tell me in the comments below what you think of this. And I'm gonna see you in the next episode, which will be a scripted video about the glitches in 127. Everybody have a nice day, and see you.